So it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week, preseason play has continued on, and several rumors and storylines that dominated the offseason continued to get new developments, so of course we still have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 51% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Joel, and he says that the Chicago Bulls will be a top 3 seed in the East because they'll gel faster than expected and their defense will be better than expected. The Bulls had one of the most notably impressive off-seasons this year after starting their emergence of big moves at last season's trade deadline, and after adding players like Nikola Vucevic, Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, and Alex Caruso to play alongside Zach LaVine in those two periods, they now look very formidable and ready to compete with the best teams in the East. How formidable they are, though, is tough to predict, so while there is obvious reason to be excited about them, I think we need to pump the brakes on expecting a top 3 finish in the East for now. The hype has only grown after the team's very impressive showing in the preseason so far, winning all 4 of their games. But it is preseason after all, and you can only take results from this period with a grain of salt, because most teams aren't going 100% in the preseason and are just working their way back into the swing of things before the real games start. Regarding the reasoning behind the original take, teams with this many newcomers typically do take a while to gel, and I'm not quite a believer in their defense yet. The key to a good defense in the NBA tends to stem from their ability to protect the basket, and Nikola Vucevic struggles in that regard as a center. So when you factor in players like Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, who have a history of struggling to keep their man in front of them, they also lack that second line of defense to make up for that. They do have defensive playmakers like Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and Derrick Jones Jr. along with young Patrick Williams, so they definitely won't be terrible like some other people think they will, but their best case scenario is probably a middle-of-the-pack defense in this regard, and as for where they'll finish as a team, I think the top 3 in the East right now are still the Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, and Philadelphia 76ers, with the Miami Heat also likely being better as well. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Miha, and they say that the Zion Williamson situation in New Orleans is worse than the Ben Simmons situation in Philadelphia. This is a story that hasn't gotten nearly as much coverage as I think it probably should be getting, because it's incredibly concerning for this to be happening to the young face of a franchise. Basically, reports came out a few weeks ago that Zion Williamson isn't fully bought into what front office member David Griffin is doing with the team. He's frustrated with the lack of direction with the team. He's hidden previous injuries and struggles to maintain his fitness level, and now he's come into training camp looking a bit overweight than he previously did, and is still recovering from a foot injury with no real timetable to return. There's a lot of shady stuff happening regarding him, with a now established history of keeping fans in the dark with it all, and it's continuing with them hiding how serious Zion's injury is again right now. He could sign a massive contract extension with the team in the near future, but from what we've heard, it's not guaranteed that he signs that deal or wants to stay along for much longer. The difference between the Ben Simmons stuff and the Zion Williamson stuff is that Zion is the clear best player on the team and the guy the franchise is trying to build around, so his status greatly affects the way the team will operate in the future. The Sixers, however, however, have MVP candidate Joel Embiid, so Ben's unhappiness will result in swapping him for other players to cater to Embiid and his needs, with the team still being in pretty solid shape in the aftermath of it all. Again, it's not something the media has covered nearly as extensively, but it's definitely something that needs to be monitored more moving forward. The next take we'll be discussing today says that Giannis Antetokounmpo with a jumper is far and away the best player in the league. So, one of the biggest developments we've seen in the preseason so far is that Giannis and his jump shot look to be incredibly more polished and improved. It's a bit less stiff and more fluid with the form, he's comfortable pulling the trigger more often, and most importantly, it's going in at a better rate. As I said earlier though, it is still the preseason and you really shouldn't overreact to anything you see in this period, but obviously this is a huge development for Giannis if it holds true into the regular season. After the run he and the Milwaukee Bucks just went on in last year's playoffs, it would have been a completely reasonable take to say that Giannis is the best player in the league right now anyway, because he's the reigning champion and finals MVP who literally scored 50 points in the elimination game of that finals series to cap off a historically great series overall. When you do things like that, you deserve all of the credit in the world, but if you're telling me there's a chance that he might come back even better with a newfound ability to stretch the floor, I don't think there would be any question who deserves that #1 spot in player ranking lists. We've seen Giannis go stretches where his shot looks solid in the past, only for it to prove to be pretty inconsistent, so we do definitely need a bigger sample size on this development. But either way, Giannis is clearly in that best player in the league conversation, with or without it. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today says that Davion Mitchell will have the most impact this season from the rookie class with his NBA-ready two-way play. I can happily say that while most were negative regarding the selection by the Kings of Davion Mitchell at the time of the draft, I was very high on both the player and the fit. Sure, the Kings have a lot of quality guards right now, but Mitchell brings something that they desperately need more of, and that's lockdown perimeter defense. He may be a rookie, but in college, he showed he could hound anyone at the position and make life incredibly difficult for his matchups, and so far, it seems like that will definitely translate. Throw in the fact that he's a very good three-point shooter and shifty creator off the dribble, and he'll be someone giving teams quality minutes for years to come. Now, regarding the take at hand, it is obviously a bit of a reach to label him as the guy who will bring the most impact out of the entire rookie class, but what I will say is that he's going to be a lot better than a lot of people anticipated right from the jump. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.